Have you ever reached a point in your life where you secretly wanted to quit, but you kept going because everyone expected you to stay? Because people looked at you as the strong one, the consistent one, the champion, and you felt obligated to keep that image alive. I've been there. Most people don't know this, but after winning my fifth title, I privately announced to a few people that I was done, completely done. I even recorded a video on my phone, tears running down my face, sitting alone in my gym after a brutal workout, saying, "This is it. This is my last Olympia. I don't want to do this anymore." That recording was the only honest moment where I admitted to myself, I'm finished. I'm stepping away. But somehow, I came back. I stood on that stage again. I fought again. I pushed again. And then you heard it one more time. Your reigning six-time Olympia champion, Chris Bumstead. When I first started, the gym was my safe place. It was beautiful, peaceful. It was somewhere I could escape from everything and just breathe. I loved the process, the grind, the sweat, the feeling of becoming better every single day. And when the results started showing, something changed. Not overnight, slowly. The escape turned into expectations. The joy turned into pressure. And without realizing it, I tied my entire identity to competing. Not because I wanted to, but because I felt like I had to. I chose bodybuilding. I chose the discipline, the lifestyle, the sacrifices. But over time, I started asking myself, is it still a choice if you feel like you must do it to feel worthy? Is it still passion when your entire self-worth depends on the outcome? The truth hit me hard. I wasn't gaining anything from it anymore. It wasn't feeding my soul. It was draining me. So I had to face an uncomfortable question. What if you lose everything attached to this identity? Will you be okay? Will you still recognize yourself if it all disappears? Because once upon a time, it was about love. The love of the sport, the love of bodybuilding, the love of becoming better. But somewhere along the journey, it became an attachment, an addiction to the outcome, a dependence on the validation. Going into my last year, I realized something heartbreaking. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It didn't feel like I get to train today. It felt like I have to go train so I don't lose. I have to push because I must win. I have to, or I'm not good enough. That shift in mindset was my wake-up call. And it was the moment I knew it's time to walk away. Not because I'm weak, but because this version of the journey no longer serves me.
Why we start something and why we continue it, those reasons evolve. When the thing that once fueled you begins to drain you instead, you must reevaluate your path. Money, fame, attention, these things are incredible. I'm not going to lie. I'm human. Of course I enjoy them. But none of it was making me feel alive anymore. Instead, it pulled me away from my actual life. I'd miss a meal and panic. I'd go to an event and worry I lost a pound. I'd question my physique every single day. Are my legs big enough? Is my waist too wide this year? Will my body be perfect on that stage? All these thoughts, they drag you away from living in the present. You're physically there, but mentally trapped inside an endless loop of fear, pressure, and expectation. And all of this happened because I got more attached to the outcome than to the love of the journey. I once said, I found more fulfillment in the journey toward my goals than in the moment I achieved them. And here's why. It's because the journey is where you discover who you are. There were countless times during prep when I thought, there's no way I'm winning this year. I'm too far behind. Last year, I tore my lat. I tore my bicep. I ended up in the hospital. Everything seemed impossible. If you asked me back then if I could still win, I would have told you no chance. But I was wrong. Being in the struggle taught me something that victory never could. I am capable of far more than my mind believes. We all are. My greatest growth didn't come from winning. It came from the setbacks, the injuries, the doubt, the exhaustion, the battles fought in silence. Because the journey builds the real champion, not the trophy. There were countless moments in my journey where I'd be deep into a workout, starving between meals, exhausted from check-ins, or barely holding myself together. Yet somehow in the middle of all that struggle, I'd feel this strange sense of gratitude. I would pause and think, this is incredible. Because in those moments, I wasn't just training, I was truly alive. I was in peak condition, preparing to stand on the biggest stage in the world, fighting to be the absolute best. And while people only see the polished 10 minutes under bright lights, they will never understand the mental battles, the quiet suffering, and the emotional weight that comes with the journey. But I got to live it. I got to feel it every single day. And that experience, that raw connection to being fully human, is something indescribably beautiful. I remember hearing the quote, "Pressure is a privilege," for the first time from Tim Grover.
His book Relentless completely reshaped how I approached competing. It made me realize that winning at the highest level is never just about the physical body. It's about the mind. After my first Olympia win, everything shifted. Suddenly, I felt like I had revealed my potential to the world. People knew what I was capable of, and that created a new kind of pressure. There was no second place to hide behind anymore. It became simple. Either you're the best, or you're forgotten. The weight of that expectation sat on my shoulders, and for a while, it dragged me down. But eventually, I realized something important. The pressure wasn't coming from the world, it was coming from me. And once I understood that, everything changed. Pressure became less of a burden and more of a guide. It pushed me to evolve, to grow, to become a stronger version of myself, mentally, physically, and emotionally. When you choose to see pressure as something that elevates you rather than something that crushes you, you take your power back. And that shift in perception is what allows you to move forward instead of holding yourself back. People often ask what a champion mentality really means. In the beginning, I thought it was simple, just win. But over time, I learned it's so much deeper than that. A champion mentality is built on the refusal to quit even when everything in your life is falling apart. It's acknowledging the fear, the doubt, the insecurity, but deciding to keep going anyway. True champions are not controlled by circumstances. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They control their inner world, their thoughts, their actions, their discipline, and let the outer world adjust around them. For a long time, I believed it was unhealthy to be driven by the fear of not being good enough. I thought it was a toxic way to live. But with experience, I realized that for many people, including myself, that fear can actually be the spark that starts the journey. Maybe it's not the ideal long-term motivation, but sometimes insecurity is the fuel that gets you moving. It pushes you to achieve things you might have never tried if you waited to feel confident first. And once you reach a place of abundance, after the wins, the accomplishments, the growth, you finally gain the perspective and emotional maturity to search for true self-worth, the kind that comes from within. I wouldn't change the reasons I started, even if they weren't perfect, because those imperfect beginnings led me here, to clarity, to growth, to understanding myself on a deeper level. Sometimes it's easier to chase your dreams, achieve them, and then outgrow the desire than it is to pretend you can release the desire without ever experiencing the journey.
Jim Carrey said something that always stuck with me. I wish for everyone to achieve their dreams and become rich and famous so they can realize that none of it makes you complete. That hit me hard, because it's true. You think the dream will fix everything, but when you finally hold it, you see that fulfillment has to come from somewhere deeper. He once joked during an award speech, saying something like, "I'm Jim Carrey, but I wish I was two-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey." It was funny, but there was profound truth hidden in that humor. Even the highest achievements don't complete us. They simply reveal what we still need to face within ourselves. Jim Carrey once said something during an award speech that stayed with me. He walked on stage at the Golden Globes and joked, "I am two-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey, going to get some well-needed shut-eye. And when I dream, I don't just dream any ordinary dream. I dream of being three-time Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey. Because then I would be enough and I could finally stop this terrible search for something that I know will never fulfill me." The whole crowd burst into laughter, but behind that humor was a sharp truth. A few people in the room looked at him with this expression of recognition, like they understood he wasn't just being funny. He was pointing at something deeper. Because the real question he was hinting at was, when is enough enough? And that question haunts every champion in ways most people never see. Someone once asked me, if you hadn't won, would you have still retired this year? And honestly, I had never truly considered it before. Every single prep, year after year, I battled this internal war with belief. Even when I was dominating a show, even when the judges' faces made it obvious, even when the crowd already knew, I still doubted. I remember one Olympia where my sister looked me in the eyes backstage and said, "Are you ever going to believe you're going to win?" And even then, at my absolute best, I still said, "I don't know, maybe." That self-doubt lived with me for so long that it became part of my identity. Going into my final prep, I hit a crossroads. I had moments where I questioned whether I loved this anymore. I had moments where I was unsure if I even wanted it. But I worked my way back to a point of clarity. A point where I said to myself, this is the last time. And once I made that decision, I allowed myself to fully enjoy the journey again. But the entire time, one question echoed in my mind. If I don't win, does this whole chapter close, or do I keep going? It wasn't even about the trophy anymore. It was about my identity. Win or walk away. It took me years, but eventually I reached a place where I could finally believe in myself. Not hope, not wish, not pray, believe. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I knew what I was capable of, and I trusted myself to execute. And when that belief finally clicked, the noise in my head quieted. The tension faded. I didn't have to fight with fear anymore. That's when I realized this is what a champion mentality really is. The ability to trust yourself even when the world is loud and your doubts scream louder. Would I have retired even if I didn't win? I like to believe I would have, because something shifted inside me toward the end. My mind let go of the obsession, let go of the unhealthy attachments, and finally allowed me to see the bigger picture. I began noticing all the things I had been carrying. Tension, fear, pressure, and how they had seeped into my life beyond competing. For the first time in years, I couldn't imagine locking myself into that selfish, all-consuming tunnel vision again. My life had changed too much. My priorities had expanded. And competing at that level requires you to shrink your world down to almost nothing. There's something important people don't talk about enough. Don't model someone's results, model their rise. Most of the people giving advice are speaking from the top of the mountain. They've already made it. They have freedom, control, time, money, resources, and stability. But you, the person climbing, don't have those luxuries yet. And they barely remember what beginning felt like. So when you ask someone ultra successful, what's the key to business? They'll say things like work-life balance, follow your intuition, or just trust your gut. But if you look back at what they actually did when they were at the bottom, their lives were chaos. No balance, no intuition, just grind, sacrifice, discipline, and late nights. So when someone tells you how to live now, remember, you should follow what they did back then, not what they do now that they're comfortable.
People always think clarity arrives at the beginning of the journey, but often it shows up only when things start slipping away. You only realize what you truly valued once it starts fading, and that happened to me. I'm still trying to fully understand why I wanted to quit the year before I actually did. That was the year everything collided at once. A severe injury, personal life chaos, unexpected transitions, and finding out Courtney was pregnant. My whole world shifted in a matter of months. Suddenly, the structure I relied on was gone, and I didn't know how to carry everything at once. For the first time, I felt like I couldn't handle it. I was overwhelmed. I thought maybe I can't do this anymore, so I started to pull away. But looking back, I realized something important. I wasn't quitting because I had fallen out of love with competing. I was quitting out of fear. And the noise of everything happening around me made it impossible to hear my real voice. I was confused. Was I walking away because my heart wasn't in it? Or was I walking away because life had become so heavy that I couldn't tell the difference anymore? The injury alone should have taken me out. Most people don't push through something like that, but I kept going. Through the pain, through the uncertainty, through the fear, because deep down, something in me still wanted to finish the story on my own terms. There came a point where I realized I needed to give myself another chance, another clean opportunity to step back into the mindset, feel the process again, and honestly ask myself, is this still meant for me? Over the last few years, one of the most valuable habits I've built is the constant reevaluation of my values. I've learned to make choices based on what matters most, not just what feels good in the moment. And sometimes the decisions that align with your highest values don't feel comfortable at all. But long term, they're the ones that bring clarity. And strangely enough, the thing that helped me feel grounded again was something so simple: getting back into a structured routine, training again consistently, eating 5 meals a day, weighing my food, not because I had to, but because I chose to. My life had been chaotic. I felt lost, scattered, drained. But the moment I stepped back into the gym with intention, the moment I followed a routine because I wanted to, not because I was preparing for a title, something inside me clicked again. People asked me, why are you still training so hard? Why push yourself like that when you're not competing? And my answer was simple: because I love it. Once I reconnected with that love, my days became lighter, my mind settled, my spirit felt aligned again.
That's why I always encourage people to lift weights. Not to chase trophies, not to chase perfection, and definitely not to chase bodybuilding. I don't want people to compete just because they see the highlight reel, because the sacrifices behind it are real, brutal, and often unhealthy. But weightlifting, training, discipline, effort, that can save you. When you're lost, when life feels heavy, when your mind is anxious and your path is unclear, go work out. Go do something difficult. Choose something challenging that shows progress, builds confidence, and reconnects you with who you are. The gym has saved me more times than I can count. Because when life gets confusing, those vague concepts, motivation, purpose, passion, don't hit you in the moment. What hits you is waking up one morning and not knowing what you're supposed to do. You feel tired, disconnected, unmotivated. You don't want to train. You're short-tempered with people you care about. You distract yourself with small tasks just so you can feel important. You overbook your calendar because busyness makes you feel valuable. You do anything you can to fill the void. In big moments, you can predict what's coming. But in the day-to-day reality, everything feels messy and unpredictable. At that point, I had to treat myself like a science experiment. I had to add and remove pieces of my life to figure out what truly mattered. I realized bodybuilding was creating pressure, but not everything connected to bodybuilding was the problem. Once I stopped competing, I thought I could let go of everything: the strict meal timing, the intense focus, the discipline, the structure. I let myself sleep in. I stopped training at the same time. I allowed myself to be casual about my meals. And soon I started feeling worse, not better. That's when it hit me. It wasn't the structure that was hurting me. The structure was helping me. The routine, the discipline, the precision, these weren't burdens. They were anchors. They made me feel strong. They gave me confidence. They gave me the ability to handle everything else in my life. I didn't realize it then, but those habits weren't just prep routines. They were the pillars holding me up as a person. Once those pillars were gone, I felt it collapse, and rebuilding from that place is so much harder than catching it early. But that's life. There is never a straight climb to the top. You rise, you fall, you rebuild. You shed old versions of yourself.
You grow into new ones. You break down and rise again. Every phase demands a new version of you. People ask me, what would you say to someone who has lost direction in life the way you did? And honestly, I'd tell them the truth. I'm still in it. I'm still figuring things out. But I'm confident it's all shaping me for the better. I knew the path I was on, the one I stayed on for years, wasn't the healthiest one for me. If I had stayed on that path, maybe I wouldn't have felt lost, but I would have stopped discovering anything new. Being lost can actually be a gift, because at least when you're lost, you're searching. At least you're exploring. At least there's a chance you stumble into something better. Nothing will ever feel like the Olympia. Nothing will replace that stage. But life has so many other incredible things waiting. And for me, the gym has always been my foundation. When I'm lost, it's always there. When life is out of control, training becomes the one thing in my control. That constant, that reliable anchor is what saves people. It's what saved me. So if you're lost, if you're unsure, if you feel like you don't know where you're headed, just go lift. Go train. Go put your hands on something heavy. Because sometimes getting jacked is just the first step in piecing your life back together.